I always try to encourage guys, especially coming up into college, but in general in life, like to be yourself. Because especially in college, most colleges, you're going to get respected if you're yourself. You know what I mean? And you're true and strong in your foundation. Because by my sophomore year, really, everybody knew, what I believed in and what I was and wasn't going to do. And I got respect from that. I ended up being, one of the leaders on the team very quickly because of that. Those were guys that they were like, Bowie's going to hold us accountable. So don't talk about this or this or this around him because he's going to tell us about it. Right. So people are going to respect you for your beliefs oftentimes if you're strong in that and show them that it's something that you truly believe. Now, you're going to have pushback. They're going to test those beliefs. Right. But as long as you stay strong in that, more often than not, you're going to get that kind of respect from people for that. So.
Hello, everyone. This is author Tim Brown, the book Uncommon Athletes, and I am just excited to have a great guest on today. Just a reminder, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel so I can continue to broadcast these. Then that like button as well. But this young man here is truly an uncommon athlete, Nehemiah Bowie. Nehemiah is one of 10 children. Make sure I got this right.
Yep.
Is that right? Yep.
Yep.
I think there's nine boys. And so I'm sure there's some great stories from them days, But most importantly, I want to jump right in and talk about that strong faith foundation. I've known you for a long time. I know how committed your family is to God and to the Word. And can you talk about that faith foundation, how it became personal for you?
Yeah. Like you said, you know me for a long time. So my grandpa was a pastor. Okay. So, my dad was raised up in the church. And that was something that he really, believed in and was instilled in him. And my mom kind of came from the other side of that and found Christ later in her life. So I think that really helped build our foundation because, that relationship is personal. So they really built that foundation for us, showing us the path and, leading us to the water. But, telling us that this is ultimately your relationship and your decision. So helping us, find God for ourselves is probably the biggest piece of that faith foundation.
That's awesome. And I know you just been observing you at different venues or different opportunities. I know how solid that is for you. We talked a little about that large family that you came from, those nine. But what was the competitive nature of the family? Can you talk about how competitive that is? Having all those brothers.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even like I have one sister as well. I mean, it's just like our family in general. We just can't help it. Whether that's it comes from my mom, if you believe that. She really competitive with board games, but we would play football outside in the street. We would play basketball every weekend. So just always that competitive drive to, best one another. And we're all real close in age. So it's always, a competition at all levels, top down to bottom. So
you guys got your own team, huh? You don't need anybody else. You got your own starting five, and you got enough almost for a whole football squad. On one side. That's awesome. That's awesome. The interesting part about you was how did you actually get involved in sports? How did you get involved in sports?
So we were homeschooled growing up. So my mom always looked for different opportunities for us to stay active. So growing up, being young, that was doing things like above the rim at our local church, so playing basketball real young. And then during the summer, how we met you with FCA, getting involved in that. And then ultimately on the football side, being introduced to the Columbus Crusaders. So just finding different opportunities for us where, they welcomed a homeschool family to come in and play some sports.
Good. Can you talk about that FCA camp experience? I know you started out as a camper and then eventually became a huddle leader. And I think he was with us for a good 8 years. I know it was a good minute. Can you talk about that camp experience, and particularly going from a camper to what wanted you to be a huddle leader, and what that is, someone who's over those impacting other people's life for Christ? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was raised up under that with my brothers starting it before me. So, I mean, that was a piece of it. but that was something that we always looked forward to a lot. After those 3-4 weeks were over, because we went to everyone that you put
Right,
on.
right, right.
Were over. We were always excited for the next year. And then just having those people impact me that you had, be as huddle leaders when I was little, that example really had a huge impact on me, from your son, your daughters, different people like that. That really made an impact on me to where I wanted to have that same impact on young kids growing up as well, including obviously my siblings who came up under me, but more than that, other people's kids, and kind of be at least some type of role model to those kids.
Any experience stick out to you that jumps out to you at one of the camps?
uh, there's just so many. I mean, and they're not always just, and they weren't just like with me. It was just different times where like you would have interaction with a huddle leader to where you could tell it wasn't just about money, because they weren't really paid much. It was more just about impacting those kids, and being there for them. I can think about times when young Cameron Hart and DJ, they'd be, it would seem like going a little hard on the kids, but the kids enjoyed it. You know what I mean? And they really saw those guys as like superheroes. Those were big to me. And then your relationship, like you always knew every single kid at every camp's name. Always had a personal conversation. Like I don't think there was ever a camp that you didn't have 3 or 4 kids by the end of the week holding on to your Miss Carmen's leg. You had to kind of like pull them off. Like
Right.
those things, interactions to me really stuck out and had a big impact on me. So
Good, good. Yeah, you guys did a great job. We always look forward to the family. And the other thing I love about you guys, you always are bringing somebody with you.
yeah,
I always remember them guys. Of course, there's a bunch of you all coming out the van, and there's a couple more guys,
yeah,
that you brought along with you, and that was truly a blessing. That you were kind of spreading that, even evangelizing. Then, at that time, just spreading
yeah,
that word, bringing others to experience that relationship, and just introducing a lot of those kids. It was their first introduction to Jesus Christ. To the love of
yeah.
God, and so that was truly a blessing. You know. You went on to play, you mentioned briefly about the Columbus Crusaders, which is a local Christian-based athletic program. What difference did you see between that? I know you guys played a lot of quote unquote secular schools, high schools or whatnot. What difference did you see in that from a football, not just from a football standpoint, and from a life standpoint, life lesson standpoint?
Again, for me, that whole thing that Columbus Crusaders have going on over there is being a light through relationships. Like that was always the number one thing. It was never like a forced, you have to be Christian. We had guys from all over the place. Met how we were talking earlier, my god brother through Columbus Crusaders, who's now a strong Christian as well, but wasn't raised that way. Like it was always relationship first, and showing Christ through actions. So we would have our devotions weekly, obviously, but that was more just being a light. It wasn't something to where some of that stereotype we see nowadays, how the world tries to portray Christians of, oh, I'm Bible thumping you, you're doing and living so wrong. It was more about love. But at the same time, the cool piece of that was we're going to play football really, really good.
Right.
So those two things, being able to do that was an awesome opportunity for me. So
yeah, that's an interesting point you just brought up about sometimes people think a Christian team being a soft team, so to speak, not really realizing that we're out here to win just like you are, and we're going to play just as hard, maybe even harder, because we're not playing for that scoreboard. We're playing for Christ. We're want to be that representative of Jesus Christ. So how does a homeschool football player playing for a Christian-based program end up playing college football at Muskingum University? Can you talk a little about that process and how that worked for you?
Really was just you hear the saying sometimes that if you want to play any college sport, it's just more about seeking it out. So I was going to different football camps around the area, sending my film and information out to coaches. But again, the Crusader coaches, one in particular, who was my defensive back coach, Victor Melfi, he reached out to schools for me as well, helped me get in contact with different coaches. So that's kind of how I got noticed and got my foot in the door. And then got the opportunity to play football at Muskingum. And from there, it was, on me to show them what I've learned, not only as an athlete, but as a man. I can say for sure, if you ask anybody at Muskingum, they'll tell you that one of my best attributes was my attitude, my work ethic, and my drive, things of that nature, just being able to be a guy that was relied upon to do the right thing. And I can say that was truly built through my upbringing and through my family, FCA, Crusaders, and things of that nature.
Yeah, being on that football team and person knowing you're a believer, how did you handle that challenge? Coming from that bubble, being with the Columbus Crusaders, and all of a sudden you're on this campus where you got all kinds of people, all different kinds of values, beliefs. How did you manage that?
Well, to be honest, that was actually a big kind of like anxious point of going into college. Number one being homeschooled, so you're already going to get kind of a look, and then number two being a Christian as well, which is obviously, like you say, uncommon. But the team really embraced it. I always try to encourage guys, especially coming up into college, but in general in life, like to be yourself, because especially in college, most colleges, you're going to get respected if you're yourself. You know what I mean? And you're true and strong in your foundation. Because by my sophomore year, really, everybody knew, what I believed in and what I was and wasn't going to do. And I got respect from that. I ended up being, one of the leaders on the team very quickly because of that. Those were guys that they were like, Bowie's going to hold us accountable. So don't talk about this or this or this around him because he's going to tell us about it. Right. So people are going to respect you for your beliefs oftentimes. If you're strong in that and show them that it's something that you truly believe. Now, you're going to have pushback. They're going to test those beliefs, right? But as long as you stay strong in that, more often than not, you're going to get that kind of respect from people for that. So
that's good. That's good. I think that key word you said was, being yourself. And that leads to guys respecting you because they know you're not wishy-washy. They know that they know what you stand for. And I really believe guys, they honor, they respect that. And a lot of times they want to be like you. Something about like, man, I wish I could, how could I do it? And we know that it's just because of we're not perfect, but it's because we serve a perfect God. When we know Jesus is our light. And so now you're a college football coach. Was that always in the plan? Did you always see yourself on the sideline? Getting on guys or whatever? Was that in the plan?
No, not completely. I was a business management major. I wanted to open my own music studio originally. Coaching was in the back of my mind as far as maybe, helping out here and there with high school or doing some type of summer camp outreach, things of that nature. Just because like coaching for me is about impacting people first and foremost. But my senior year, due to COVID, we had lost the defensive coach. He moved on. And I was just in a position to where like I knew the defense more than the other guys. Like we had new coaches that had just gotten there, so they didn't really fully grasp it. So again, being able to be that guy that got relied on, my head coach called me in one day and was like, "Hey, can you help us teach the defense while playing?" So that just kind of ignited that fire, and it was just something that I really, really wanted to do. And of course, first I had to get the okay from the wife, like, can we do this? But from there, once we got the okay, I just moved forward with it. So no, it was not always the plan.
So as a coach, what does Coach Bowie want to impart into his players? What is that thing you want those guys to get out of football?
I think it goes back to what I talked about earlier. To be yourself first and foremost. I really try to encourage guys, be yourself, and then respect others. I think the best way in my position, especially nowadays, because things can get tricky when you're trying to profess Christ in a professional setting, is just being that light and showing them first and foremost, you got to accept who you are, right? And do that own soul searching. You can't follow everybody else. And that kind of puts them in that direction. So as far as impact, I just want guys to look at the world differently. I want them to question everything, question me. And I tell them that, for football, like, okay, when I'm installing this defense, I want you to question it and ask questions. because that's when we really open our minds and we can actually start to believe things and understand things for ourselves. So that's the impact I want to leave on God, is to question everything, be yourself, and respect others as well.
I know you being at Denison University, they got a good one in you. You know, I'm sure there's a man that has some principles, some values. You know, that has
Yeah.
a high standard for life. You know, and I think that's what these young guys are looking for today. You know, they're looking for that example. And then being a coach, you're in a position to really not just impact lives, but give guys an opportunity. You know, give them an opportunity, and when they're there, to be able to see a light. You know. See something different, you know, see something positive, and that's what God, I believe that's what God has you there for. As we think about this homeschool deal, I know there may be some athletes and some parents who are listening to this, and particularly with the COVID year, you know, a lot of kids were at home, and some are still, you know, working at home, being homeschooled. How would you encourage a homeschool athlete and a parent as well? Because sometimes I think homeschool, they get that where you're not being socialized, you know, you're not, you know, around other kids as much as in the big schools. You're not playing against some of the bigger schools or whatnot. I don't know how you're going to get a scholarship, how this is going to work for you. What advice would you give homeschool parents and homeschool athletes?
My number one advice would be stick to the plan. My mom always said every year she would reassess and talk and pray with God and be like, is this what I'm supposed to do? And if he said yes, that's what we did. And I know for us growing up, originally, you know, up to about middle school, it was always like a thing to be homeschooled, right? Like, man, I wish I wasn't homeschooled. But by the time you're about middle school, high school, you're like, it just is what it is. Right. So I would say stick to the plan and embrace it, because being homeschooled doesn't limit your opportunities athletically. You just may have to stick them out a little bit more, which is most things in life that, you know, that we want, having to kind of go out and get it. And I think that in and of itself kind of gives people that are homeschooled an extra advantage in life, you know, because you've got to kind of go make your own way and make your own opportunities in a lot of ways athletically, for those athletic opportunities. So I would say just embrace it, stick to the plan, because, you know, you'll get jokes here and there. Our coaching staff actually yesterday was making a joke. I messed up a call and they're like, "No, is that your Muskingum education or the homeschool?" And I'm like, that's good. That's good. I haven't heard a homeschool joke in a while. But, you know, I'm proud of it. I'm happy to be homeschooled. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of life, whether you get a homeschool education or a high school education from a, you know, big private school. You know what I'm saying? So stick to the plan and just trust that that's what God has you doing.
Amen. Man, you talked about sticking to the plan, you know, and the Bible says in Jeremiah that I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you a future and a hope. And so God truly has a plan, you know, for all of our lives. And I just want to commend you and your family for sticking to that plan, you know. And I'm sure you've heard of, you know, people in your ear with the jokes or whatever about being homeschooled and all that, but you guys are truly have stuck to the plan. And I'm so proud to have known you guys and watch your family grow and mature. And I'm excited for you and what God has for you, you know, and you know, his ways are not our ways, you know, so we don't know what he has for us. We just want to stick to it because we know that in the end, it's his plan. It's not our plan, it's his plan. As long as we're serving him and following his plan, that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And I really believe at this stage in your life, this is your purpose, you know, this is your purpose, you know, is to lead God in this next generation of young men. And that's why I wanted to have you on here, you know, so people can be encouraged. And I like the young face on here, you know, you can see there's some young guys, you know, you know, look at things in the world and you see, oh man, I don't know what this young generation is going to do. No, I know what they're going to do. They're already doing it, you know, and that is taking that leadership. And so I want to commend you for that. And I just want to pray that you continue to stay with the plan, you know, stick with God's plan and see what God does for you. So I appreciate your time, man. This has been great. Just a blessing watching you guys go. And then I guess is because my daughter come in, you know, she coached at Denison for a little bit. So I know it's the Go Big Red. So I know how that works down there.
Go Big Red down there.
Big Red. All right. Well, thanks for your time. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you having me.
All right.